The Independent National Electoral Commission says there is no going back on plans to conduct a governorship election in Edo State, scheduled for September the 19th. However, that was the latest conflicting pronouncement from the Commission in a series of flip-flops which may have added to an emerging atmosphere of tension arising from the politicking ahead of the exercise. The rhetorics have for most times been a bit too inflammatory, and while interventions have been made even from outside Edo State to douse the situation, there may be little on ground to suggest that the exercise itself will be as hitch-free as initially envisaged. But what do we know? In our desire to ensure balance in the coverage, we are now being joined for a conversation about the forthcoming election by Osagie Ize-Iyamu, governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress and a former secretary to the Edo State government. Pastor Ize-Iyamu, good morning, and thank you for joining us again on the morning show. Hello.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Well, since the last time you appeared on this program, a lot has happened in the lead-up to the gubernatorial election in Edo State. Now, how is that going from your end? Well, from our end, our major concern is about the threat of violence. INEC has also expressed concern about that. There was violence at the Oba's Palace. There was violence at Isako North. There were threats in other places. And the rhetoric from political leaders in that state has been just feverish and frightening. Now, what efforts are you, the political leaders, taking part in this forthcoming election? What efforts are you making to make sure that there isn't a blowout, an outbreak of violence with serious consequences for the people and the state?
Well, thank you, Doctor. I would assure you that we in the APC, we are committed to a non-violent process. Our campaigns have been very peaceful. We had a flag off at the University of Benin Sports Complex when our application to the state government to use Oshiomhole Stadium was ignored. We wrote to them. They did not even give us a reply. And so at the end of the day, we had to use the University of Benin Sports Complex. And anybody would tell you that there was no incident of violence. And we've also told the 18 local governments of the state in our local government campaigns. And again, all the security agencies will confirm to you that the rallies, huge as they were very peaceful, and there was no incident of violence. Now, the two incidents you have mentioned, one at the Oba's Palace, that incident has nothing to do with the APC. The occasion on that day, the APC, they were not there. From what we found out, our local people who were at the palace to celebrate the birth of a prince to the royal family, jubilating, apparently when they saw the governor and his convoy coming into the palace, I heard that they booed them, and the governor's people opened fire on some of these people. There were many of them had gunshot wounds, but you would also notice that none of them, at least to the best of my knowledge, were APC members, and nobody can say that we sent them to the palace to boo anybody. Now, anybody holding public office must be ready to face such situations. It's not peculiar to our state. All over the world, when you have a government official that people are not pleased with, they express their displeasure in several manners, and booing is one of them. So if that even happened, to have shot at those people was unfortunate. Nobody has said that they shot at the governor's entourage or that they shot at the VIPs that came there. But what we found out was that people who were involved in this booing of the governor, many of them were shot. And if you look at the kind of bullets that were extracted, I think they said it was mainly, what do you call them, pellets. It will tell you that these were people who were holding pump actions, which is not normally assigned to the police. So the shooting was not even done by the official security personnel attached to the governor. Obviously, it must have been used by thugs who were the governor's entourage, and that is unfortunate. But I'm happy that the police are investigating it. But let me assure you that we're not involved, and nothing would have made us even go to the Oba's palace and behave in that kind of manner. That would have been disrespect to an institution that we reverence and we hold in so much esteem. So that is not, it had nothing to do with the APC. The second one you're talking about happened in Isako West in Apanam. The PDP were quick to come out to say that, oh, the APC disrupted their rally, attempted to invade the place. That is unfortunate. The police in Edo have provided adequate security in all the rallies that has happened, either that of the APC or that of the PDP. We did our own a day before, and it was very peaceful. Now, when they made this allegation, we say it cannot be, because the information at our disposal is that it was PDP dogs that invaded the Apana community because the people refused to come out. But as God will have it, somebody that was at the scene actually did a video recording. And that video recording we have sent to the Commissioner of Police, we have sent it to the press in our states. And that recording clearly showed that nobody disrupted their rally. Rather, it was people from within the rally that invaded the community and they were shooting. And even a policeman that was recording it, a thug came out from the rally wearing a T-shirt of Obaseki and Philip Shaibu and told the man, stop recording. If really you were being shot at, why will you stop somebody who's recording the incident? That recording will be an evidence of what happened. Instead, you that is supposed to be the victim, you are the one saying, stop that recording, stop that recording. It was on video. And we also found out that the deputy governor actually seized the phone of the area commander, a woman, because he thought that she was the woman that was doing the recording, not knowing that others also did it. So that recording clearly exonerated us. And contrary to their claim that, oh, we vandalized their billboards, in that recording, you will see their billboards hanging and my billboards destroyed by them. So this violence you are talking about has been a one-way traffic. It has been coming from the PDP. And the reason is obvious. You know, everywhere they have gone, the response has been extremely poor compared to the very wide acceptance we have enjoyed. So we can understand their desperation, but our appeal to them is that it should not be a do or die matter. The statement that has been coming from the governor has been unfortunate. You will recall recently that he invaded the House of Assembly and supervised the destruction of that place. The police arrested over 7 boys that came with him, and they had arms and ammunition. Right now they're in Abuja. What were they doing with arms and ammunition? You know, in the House of Assembly, following the governor. Luckily, they don't enjoy the immunity that the governor says himself and his deputy have. You know, so because they don't have immunity, they were able to arrest them and take them to Abuja. Were those people that were caught, were they APC members? No, they were PDP members. And PDP now has kept quiet about those that were arrested. One would have thought they would say, oh, those that were arrested should be dealt with. What were they doing with guns in the House of Assembly? But in their usual manner, they have kept quiet. Just like they kept quiet when bombs were being offloaded in houses of APC members, including the secretary of the party. Bombs were thrown. And the governor made no comment about it. So the reality is that we have to appeal to them. We are talking to our supporters. Don't retaliate any violence. Continue to preach peace. We want the election to be peaceful. We don't want anything that will postpone the election. And we are very definite that we will win the election. When they destroyed my billboard, rather than retaliating, I simply arranged a petition to the Commissioner of Police and to the Director of SSS. That has been our pattern. And I want to assure you that we will do nothing to bring violence in the state. It's not necessary. We will not encourage it.
Okay. And that brings me to my question about the State House of Assembly, because you did mention the House of Assembly. Many analysts, political analysts and watchers say the action of those APC lawmakers, 17 of them, is a recipe for chaos, anarchy, and bloodletting. Do you commend their actions or do you condemn it?
No, you see, we have to decide whether we want democracy to thrive in our country or not. Are you saying that in a democracy, 7 members can shut out 17 members. We have a 24-member House of Assembly. The governor deliberately excluded over 14 of them and has been handling the House of Assembly with just 10 members. And then 3 again left, making the number outside 17. And the number you're talking about is 7. The least number that can form a House of Assembly by the Constitution is 24. You need 8 members to form a quorum. So even right now, they no longer have a quorum because the 7 members they have cannot form a quorum. Now, if you invade the House of Assembly, you go there and supervise the destruction of the place. Everybody saw it. The governor arranging for the roof to be removed, arranging for the place to be looted. They stole ACs, they stole TVs, they removed everything under the governor and deputy supervision. And the bogus answer they gave was that, oh, they are trying to arrange the place for renovation. Can you appropriate money when there's no approval for it? We have a 2020 budget. There was no provision for rebuilding the House of Assembly. You even revised the budget. There was still no provision for building the House of Assembly. And in any event, at a time when we're even seeing how we can cut down because of the devastation COVID-19 has had on our economy, it's even building a new House of Assembly, the priority of Edo people. So how can you destroy a place that has not been budgeted for? There was no budget planned for the House of Assembly. In the rainy season, you decided to remove the roof. So it's clear vandalization. So if you make the place impossible for the members to come to, what do you want them to do? Are you saying that these people who were elected by their constituencies, given certificates by INEC, should not sit? So what are we talking about? You are saying that 17 members meeting was a recipe for chaos. Which chaos? That they should not sit, that they should continue to be shut out because they have a governor who wants to be a dictator, a governor does not understand that the separation of powers, and that the House of Assembly is independent of the executive arm. So let's call a spade a spade. How do you justify 17 members being ignored and then 7 members sitting? And they want to pass laws for the states? 17 members who constitute over 60% of the population of the states? It's ridiculous. So what we should be talking about is that we condemn the invasion of the House of Assembly by the governor. If the governor says he has people in the house, the speaker, why don't the speaker lead the people to the place? Why must it be the governor and deputy that will lead the place? That's an invasion. And yet nobody is commenting on it. But those who want to exercise their rights to represent their people, we are saying, oh, they shouldn't have gone there. They should remain like that until their tenure expires. So let's call a spade a spade.
Right, but a lot of people argue that at first what they did was not constitutional. They said they converged in a private apartment, which allegations are repeats. Some pointed to you, they said, oh, it was across media. You know, your opposition members pointed to you that, oh, it could even have been your place, that it was not constitutional, that they were supposed to sit in the hollow chamber.
No. Please, you say, when you are on air like this, you must refrain from making allegations that cannot be substantiated. I can tell you for free that nothing was said in my house.
Okay.
And
okay, sir. I'm still asking the question.
I reject that.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
No. Don't. If you see, it's very easy for you to substantiate whether it was not heard in my house. I can tell you categorically.
Okay.
You know, so that allegation is very malicious. It was not heard in my house. But the point is this: if you make it impossible for their complex to be used.
So what?
Till today, they have talks in the place. Are you saying that they do not have a right to meet in a place that is convenient for them? What is important is that those are members of the house. The people that met, are they strangers? Were they impersonators? Number 2, they had a mace, which is the symbol of authority. You see, sometimes we misinterpret the law.
Okay.
If the house was available for them to use and they didn't use it, you can say the house was available. Are you talking about a house that the governor has invaded, demolished, carted away all the equipment that were there? Is that the house that they will go to? Then that means you are indirectly asking that there should be chaos. Because if they had attempted to go there and people were caught there with guns, that means they meant to kill them. Would you have been satisfied that if they had gone there and they were killed, then you say, okay, we are sorry they were killed? It was clear that their lives were at stake.
Okay. Okay.
In that situation, any appropriate place was convenient.
Okay, that taking...
So let's understand the situation. I just can't understand why we can't put the blame where it is.
Okay.
How do you justify
can I
the
please...
executive governor moving to the House of Assembly? How do you justify the destruction that took place? How do you justify it?
Okay.
How do you justify 7 members meeting to the exclusion of 17? How do you justify it?
Okay, so I'm still on that point. They've proved the constitutional illegality of that act. But moving forward from that, there are also allegations, and this is across both parties, that voters' cards are being printed in the state now. The APC is accusing the PDP of this, the PDP is accusing the APC of this. I mean, I'd like to know your take on this. And also, some people have, taken you to, you've got some court cases pending leading up to this election. I'd like to know, your take on all of these matters.
Well, we are not involved in printing of cards. That would be ridiculous. I think that the voters' cards are quite safe and sophisticated enough to be cloned or to be printed. All we have heard, and we have cause to believe it, is that the PDP have embarked on trying to buy a lot of voters' cards. And it's clear that the intention is to disenfranchise as many people as possible, apparently in areas where they think that they will not do well. That is what we have been hearing and that's what we have been talking about. But I'm not aware of printing of cards. Now to the issue of court cases, yes, the APC, the PDP, they've gone to court in over 12 different suits seeking for her to disqualify Pastor Ize-Iyamu and my deputy. And the question is, why are they so desperate to ensure that Pastor Ize-Iyamu does not contest? Why are they so desperate? I contested last time. I did not take them to court until after the election. But they are so desperate. But to the glory of God, all their suits, and their so-called claims are all bogus, very frivolous. And we believe that, they will not stand. So to us, it's just a complete waste of money. The only unfortunate thing is that, who is paying for all this? Our belief is that they're using state government resources to pay the number of sons who are handling all these cases. And it will be running to billions. So it's just unfortunate that those state government money is being wasted like this. But I can assure you that those cases have no substance to them. There's one that I want to mention, which they tried to talk about, and that was the EFCC case against me for 700 million. But recently in a BBC interview, I made it very clear that the so-called money they are talking about was never paid to my account, was never given to me. All I did was that they wanted somebody to verify that money for campaign and for the election came. And I, along with 2 others, went to the bank and confirmed it. And from the bank, the money was taken, not to my house, but to the house of the leader of the party. And when they got there, that same money was distributed to the 18 local government chairmen of the party. And they all signed for it. Not one kobo was given to me. These are facts available to the courts. These are facts even available to EFCC. EFCC's own is that, we ought to refund the money. And I said, how can I refund what I didn't collect? If I took the money, yes, I might say, yes, I will refund it. But if I didn't take it, not a kobo did I take. So my conscience is clear and my credibility is intact. I was chief of staff and secretary to government. No one indicted me for any wrongdoing. So after holding such positions and I came out unblemished, is it party funds that will now be something that I would put my hand? So the reality is that I have a clean record. And my advice to the PDP is that they should focus on the election instead of crying wolf when none exists. They are either raising alarm about talks when in reality they are the ones importing talks. Or on the other hand, they are destroying my my billboards, and then they will say, oh, pastor is doing this. But the evidence is clear. Go down the state and see who has billboards that are standing and who has not got billboards that are standing. It will be clear to you that the person who is crying is actually the one doing the havoc. So they should focus on the election. The only court case that we have against Governor Obaseki is actually the court case that PDP started against him PDP said he's not qualified. That his credentials are dubious. And that he ought not to contest the election. You know, that the results were forged. And that how can somebody who had 3 credits without English and maths have said he went to the university? So that even if he entered the university, he entered with fake certificates. That case was there before 4 years ago. But because of time, you know, it was dismissed for being time barred, not on its merit, on technicality. So it's that same case that PDP opened our eyes to, that we have simply taken, and we are grateful to PDP for giving us that information. It's with that information now that we have gone to court and said, like, look, this man is not even qualified. But I've also told our lawyers, any way they can delay that case till after the election, I'll be very happy. But I don't want it to be said that, oh, the court disqualified him. If not, he would have won. I want him to be defeated in the 18 local governments. After the defeat, the court can make their pronouncement and maybe say that, yes, he was not even qualified. But let me first defeat him first. Let the people defeat him. And then it will be clear that it's not a question about court. It's a question about being rejected by those people for non-performance.
Well, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, first, I mean, we're not justifying anything that the state government did. In fact, previously on this program, we condemned the removal of the roof of that State House of Assembly. We dismissed it as an act of desperation.
Thank you.
And we said more or less exactly the same things that you said. However, we also condemned the decision to go and hold a session of the House of Assembly in an undisclosed location by persons who are members-elect of that house, because those 17 lawmakers, they were majorly members-elect. And they were sworn in by the deputy clerk. The deputy clerk does not have such powers. Secondly, the work of the House of Assembly, if it must take place at all, must take place in a designated, constitutionally recognized location. The roof may have been removed, but it does not justify going to an undisclosed location, carrying an alternative mace that is not the main mace of the House of Assembly. And we think that, you know, all the players in the politics of Edo State are not serving the interest of the people well enough. However, I want to refer quickly to...
Can I reply to that?
Okay, but I have another... I have a main question.
On that, please?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
But please, let me just quickly comment on that. You see, the designated place is the House of Assembly complex or Ring Road. But if the place has been invaded and vandalized, and as you speak till now, you still have talks inside the complex. Talks are still inside the complex. What do you want the members to do? You see, every law has an exception. It depends on the circumstances. Yes, you say that, yes, under normal circumstances, this is where they ought to sit. But if they can show reasons why they could not sit there, that's an exception. Number two, there's nothing like the original maze. A maze is a maze. It's just a symbol of authority. And number three, you said the deputy clerk. The deputy clerk acts in the absence of the clerk. So if the clerk is not available, the deputy clerk has the right to act. So the things you must understand now is this. One, the 17 members, they are not impersonators. They are not interlopers. They were elected by their various constituencies, INEC getting certificates, and they are recognized as members of the House. Number two, a maze was there, a symbol of authority. There is nothing that says it's a particular maze that should be used. A maze was there. Number three, they did not go and bring a stranger to impersonate as a clerk. They brought the deputy clerk. So you can see, you know, a clear attempt to follow procedure. So you cannot condemn what they did. In the eyes of the law, they complied, you know, recognizing the constraints that were at their disposal. What would have happened if they had attempted to say they must sit in the house would have been bloodshed. And God forbid, that is not what we want. Nobody would have been happy people died. So under the circumstances, they did what was the best. Of course, you know that if APC was as desperate as them, would have said, no, we're going to follow you to clear the place. But you can see the discipline of the APC. No attempt was made to go there because it is not our job. If the security agencies cannot clear the place, then all we can do is bring the situation to the power of public opinion. We did not take the laws into our hands. We did not take the law into account. So I want us to get it in proper perspective. Your condemnation of the invasion of the house, the removing of the roof, was appropriate. But these young men who are to sit in an alternative venue, you must sympathize with them. Because if your house is invaded by armed robbers, nobody will blame you for going to sleep outside in the hotel. Your wife cannot blame you, even if she was abroad, to say, why did you not sleep in your matrimonial home? Armed robbers were there. Armed robbers were there. Darling, do you want me to be killed? I would have been killed if I went home. You say, oh, you did the best thing. Please remain in the hotel until the place is cleared. That is the same situation that they have found themselves. I just wanted to clear that, please.
Okay, the clarification is well taken, although I know that in the Ladoja case, the Supreme Court did not provide exceptions as to what constitutes a designated place.
Because there was no reason given. If they had said we wanted to sit in the complex, but they made it impossible. There were talks all over the place. They did all kinds of things. They would say, okay, since the place is not impossible for you to sit, then fine. Are you forgetting that even the courts, you can have mobile courts, the court can decide to move to the locus cinco, to the scene of the crime. The court is not just, the building itself. The court is the judge, and the authority it represents. So if a judge decides tomorrow to say, let us go and sit in the market, nobody will say it's illegal. So don't mistake the building of the High Court, as the judiciary. The judiciary is the power vested in the authorities.
Well, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, we need to take a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue, and then I'll ask you the main question I was going to bring up. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Pastor Osagie Ize-Iyamu, governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in Edo State, and also a former secretary, of course, of the Edo State government. Now, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, we have dealt with the issue of the House of Assembly. But earlier on, you referred to court cases, about 11 you said, by the PDP. But I'm also aware that there's another case at the Federal High Court in Abuja, instituted by the Action Democratic Party, the ADP, against your running mate, Gani Audu. And the case, what makes it interesting is that it sounds like the Bayelsa case. David Leon and Nemi Ereyangemi, the running mate at the time, was accused after the election, after they had won, and the matter was determined in court. And it was all about discrepancies in his qualifications and even discrepancies in terms of his identification. And the ADP in Edo State has now gone to court to say your running mate, Gani Audu, has so many names. His certificates have all names that do not rhyme. Do you feel concerned about that? Because, you win, and then the court then determines that your running mate has dubious or, problematic qualifications. Have you thought about that? Are you willing to take the risk and go all the way with him?
No, there's no risk. Of course, we all learned from the Bayelsa example. And unlike in the past when we were content, we just screening the credentials of the governorship candidate, after which is allowed to bring a running mate and submit to INEC. Now, after screening the governorship candidate, we also have to sit down to look at the credentials of the deputy governorship candidate. And we looked at it, also got some very senior lawyers to look at it, and we're satisfied with the credentials he presented, which we submitted to INEC. The case of the ADP in Abuja is not different from the multitude of cases that the PDP had themselves filed. In fact, we also believe that it's also the PDP that is actually sponsoring the one in Abuja, because the number already in their name is becoming embarrassing. So they needed to look for proxies to use in filing these cases. But because the case is already in court, I don't want to go into the details of why we believe these matters have no merit. All I can tell you is that there's nothing to worry about. We are focused on the campaign. We will win. We'll be sworn in. And by the grace of God, our victory will not be overturned. Just be rest assured that we are very focused and things are going well. We'll allow the court cases to proceed. And at the end of the day, the public will realize that they've just embarked on a white goose chase.
Okay, so let's talk about the campaigns and your chances. But first, I'd like to know, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, who's funding your campaign?
Well, it's been very, very good. You'll be amazed how people come every day to support my campaign. The last campaign we had in Oredo, which was the end of our local government campaign, you know, you had thousands of people there, and all of them had face caps. And a close friend of mine told me, this is something else. How were you able to do face caps for all these people? I said, I didn't do them. I said, every day, people are sending items. They are sending resources. You know, we have cars all over the place. You would think that we are the one in government. You know, you see branded vehicles all over the place. I didn't buy anyone. I didn't have to buy. People just bring their vehicles and say, please brand and use. And after the election, we'll take them. So I've enjoyed the goodwill, not only in terms of physical support or prayers, but financially of Edo people. You'll be amazed to find out that all the rallies we have done so far, we gave little or nothing. And yet, you know, the arrangement was something else.
Okay.
I've been involved in party activities before, and I know how expensive it is, but, you know, our people have made it very easy for us, and we are very grateful.
All right, the second leg to that question will be the issue around the former governor, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. What would you say to those who dismiss you for being tied to his aprons and say, you know, should you win these elections, it will be difficult for you to shake off his influence from your government? A lot of people see him as your godfather, and they wonder, you know, why the man who caused you so much reputational damage 4 years ago now headlines your campaigns. What do you have to say to people like that?
Well, you see, that's the beauty about life. Somebody abused you yesterday, and today, it's not only saying good things about you, but it's apologizing. For me, it's a testimony to the God that I serve. That, you know, if people say things that are not right about me, tomorrow they are alive to also say that it was wrong. Comrade Adams Oshiomhole is an elder statesman. He's been governor for 2 terms. He was former national chairman. There's no way you can disregard him in the politics of our state. And when people say what he said about me during the campaign, they also forget to remember the good things he said about me before then. I have so many tapes where he has showered so much encomium on me, on the role I played in his becoming governor and my positive contributions to his becoming, to his achievements in government. So if he disagreed with me and chose to insult me when I was now on the other side, why really do I have to worry so much about it? I didn't expect him to praise me, you know. And if he decided that, look, the best way for his candidate to win is to insult the other candidate, so let it be. But let me tell you the truth. Anybody who followed that election will tell you that the Edo people, you know, dismissed those statements by the way they voted for me. You know, but in any event, Comrade has long said, look, I said those things based on wrong information. For example, I said he was not a lawyer. I realized that he's a lawyer. I said he was not a pastor. I realized what he was a pastor. So what better story do I still want? Then number 2, anybody who knows my history, we know that apart from God, nobody can be my godfather. In your introduction just now, you mentioned that I was secretary to government. That was as far back as 2003. You can see the number of years. Before then, I was chief of staff in 1999. You know, Comrade has said it in many occasions that Pastor stepped down for him in 2007 so that he can become governor. That people were urging Pastor to contest for governor. But I stepped down for him, you know, because his area, his senatorial, has never had governor. He comes from Edo North. Edo South, where I come from, we've had governors. And I just felt that for equity to prevail, it will also be nice to make history. Let him go. And of course, he has done very well as chairman of NLC. So I just said, well, it's good. So for somebody like me to now be described as a godfather, I mean, that Oshiomhole is my godfather, on what basis? We have had history of robust engagement. We have disagreed. We have come back together. So what you see is mutual respect. Yes, you can say that, he brought Obaseki, but Obaseki was new. You can't compare Obaseki to me. I was national vice chairman of the ACN. I was one of those who crafted the constitution of the APC. So Obaseki, until his own election, I never voted in Edo State. He didn't live here, even though he was born here, but he has never lived here. He came from Lagos. So he needed a godfather. He needed somebody to nurture him, to bring him up. But for me, you're talking about an adult. There are so many people that I'm nurturing. All over the state, they see me as a leader. This is somebody that they call leader that now needs a godfather. So the only person that really is my godfather is God himself, if you must look for a godfather. But I have tremendous respect for my elders. I respect the traditional institution. I respect my religious leaders. I respect those who have excelled in various professions. I even respect my juniors. So the reality is that I was born to respect people. And, I will not disrespect anybody because I'm governor. So when you say godfather, just take that out of it. Oshiomhole is working for me. He's campaigning with me because he's also passionate about his party winning Edo. And you can't take that away from him. He's in APC. He's not in PDP. So he has the right to campaign, especially when he realized that he brought the person before who was now proven to be a disaster, a colossal damage, in the past 4 years. So you can't blame me now for trying to make restitution, for trying to correct the mistakes he made. So I just think that people are, a bit intimidated by the fact that two of us are campaigning together. In his own way, he commands large followership. And now, of course, also command large followership. With all the manipulations that were done in the past election, what was the difference? You will recall that they had to postpone that election on the eve of it for 18 days because all the statistics told them that they can't win pastor. So I'm not somebody that is a newcomer to this game. And my administration will be people-centered. Okay. It's not going to be driven by the directive of any godfather. Okay. That's not correct.
Okay, I mean, you said a lot of people are probably intimidated. Some other people I speak to are probably surprised because when you look at the amount of vermin, as it were, that your friend now and the person that is campaigning with you meted out to you in the last elections, a lot of people are shocked that, wow, unity is obviously on the card. People can come together again. I mean, I did ask him when he was here, and he said people told him he didn't verify, and he said those things about you. But I want to talk about your agenda for the people. Your simple agenda. I want you to expatiate more on this, but without saying that a lot of people have accused you of plagiarism. I should say, Don Pedro Obaseki has been saying in the media that he brought the simple agenda first. I want you to talk to that, the case of plagiarism, and also explain what's in your simple agenda for the people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As far back as 2013, I began to talk about a simple agenda. Pedro Obaseki is my junior cousin from my mother's side. And he's one of those people that used to come to my office, for me to nurture them politically. And in the course of my discussing the simple agenda, he sat down and he also listened to it in the company of so many people, Now, in 2016, I decided that I should contest. And we were surprised when somebody said he saw Pedro Obaseki on Ben television in London saying that he wanted to contest for governorship and he had an agenda which he called simple agenda. And the person actually brought me a tape of the interview on Ben television. And I actually heard him say that he had an agenda called simple. And he now mentioned the acronym. I was shocked. And I quickly called him on phone And he picked up the phone. He was still in London. I said, I just saw you on Ben television. And this is what I saw. I said, I thought that you had a PhD. Do you understand the meaning of plagiarism? Something you didn't author, you will go on TV to claim ownership. And the young man told me, sorry, that he's sorry. I said, no, it's not enough to say you are sorry. Go back to that same media and go and tell them that that claim was a lie. He told me we'll do so. And to be fair to him, he went back to Ben Television and said, I was here some weeks ago and I was talking about the simple agenda. But the reality is that it was actually the initiative of Pastor Ize-Iyamu. So, having made that clarification, I kept quiet. And if you go to Amazon, as far back as 2016, they had started, selling the simple agenda as a political manifesto of Pastor Ize-Iyamu. All that you hear about Pedro is the fact that he went on TV and lied about an agenda that he had no knowledge of. That is all. There's no document that Pedro spoke about the simple agenda. In fact, when he returned back to Nigeria and still wanted to run for governor, he ran with an agenda called Edo. He called the agenda Edo agenda, and I ran with the simple agenda. Eventually, he decided that he would support me and publicly said that he chose to support me because I have a better agenda for the people of Edo State. So there has been no controversy between myself and Pedro, apart from the very reckless statement he made on TV, which I apologize for. There has been no contest about who owns the simple agenda. But you see, when they started making claims about the ownership, I laughed. I said, well, it means that they understand that the simple agenda is a potent document for change. Unlike a governor who has been there for 4 years and had no agenda. And after so much provocation by me telling him, where is your agenda? You have come up with something you call mega, making Edo great again, admitting by implication that your past 4 years has brought Edo down. So my agenda is very simple. And Pedro Obaseki cannot sit with me. If he does, I will take him to court. There's no document that Pedro has that talks about the simple agenda. He just went on TV, and for lack of anything to say, a man who's supposed to have a PhD stole my agenda and mentioned it. But if a man steals and he apologizes, must I kill him? So he stole, but he apologized on TV. And I said, we're fine. The same place where you exhibited the stolen material is the same place you have told that the material was stolen. So I can't kill you. So I left him. Now for the simple agenda, it's an acronym, and far more detailed than just spelling out the acronym. But the X is security and social welfare. The I is infrastructural development and urban renewal. The M is manpower development. The P is public-private partnership. The L is leadership by example. And the E is employment and empowerment scheme. This, in summary, is the roadmap that I intend to use in governing our state. Of course, it's a more detailed document. In fact, the first edition was even more detailed than this one. But people told me that, look, it was too lengthy, they don't have time to read all that, and people just want a small document. Can't I suppress it? So even this document, I had to suppress it. Even though there's some people who tell me it's still too bulky. Can you just make it 2 or 3 pages? But 2 or 3 pages will not be a smart document. Because I tell people that this simple agenda is also a smart document. And when I say smart again, it's an acronym. X for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for realistic, and T time-bound. Because it's important that whatever you are saying, there must be a timeline. And for me, the timeline is 4 years. It's God that gives. So even the second term that people keep talking about is not automatic. So that's why when the governor was saying the second term is non-negotiable, it was blasphemy against God, against the Edo people. Because if he says it's non-negotiable, it means that God has no say, and the people have no say. So for me, in terms of time management, in terms of timeline, it's first 4 years. It's what I do in the 4 years that will determine whether another 4 years will come. But I'm determined that in these 4 years, I'll be able to address the salient issues. I'll be able to do a marked transformation that will make Edo a better place.
Well, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, that's very interesting, but politicians always have one agenda or the other. But what is important is how they deliver on the agenda that they articulate pre-election. But for the purpose, of this conversation, employment creation, or what we call employment and empowerment scheme, which is the E in the simple agenda, is something that will be of great interest to the people of Edo State, where the unemployment rate is on the very high side. How do you intend to achieve that E objective as a priority? That's one. And two, because we don't have time, let me quickly ask this. I saw a picture of you at a turbaning ceremony, taking a chieftaincy title from the Otaru of Auchi. And I was wondering, why would a pastor, a man of God, who is leading a congregation, go and take a chieftaincy title? Did you have to do that because of politics, because of votes? To what extent, to what length will you go to compromise?
Let me start with your last question. Let me start with your last question. We tend to promote religious intolerance by some of the things that we say. The Muslims are not our enemies. What happened in Auchi was just an honor to somebody that the respected Otaru of Auchi believes deserves such honor. I didn't apply for a chieftaincy title. There were no rituals. I went there actually to campaign. And imagine the honor for somebody who went to campaign, who went to solicit for votes. The traditional ruler says, sit down in my front. And they bring their traditional outfit, and they put you on, and they now declare that you are the Itamaso of Auchi, which means he is our own. Do you know the significance of such a statement? I'm going to a place to canvass for votes, and the traditional ruler there who has very serious influence in that part of the state says, this man is our own. So for me, it was an honor. And I'm overwhelmed and humbled and grateful that I could be so honored. Anybody who now wants to see it as, pastor wants to get a chieftaincy title, they are just, being petty. Being petty. I remain a pastor, I'm not a chief. But I will not dishonor my traditional rulers. If they choose to honor me, I will take it. There are so many traditional rulers who have called me, they want to come and do a chieftaincy. I say, no. Can you please give me a certificate of honor? He said, fine. In this case, I went there to campaign, and then the next thing, I was given this honor. So it's something that I'm very proud of. It has not changed my being a pastor. I remain a pastor, and I'm sure that even the Otaru, all he wanted to convey was that this man is widely accepted by our people. Now, number two. Hello?
Yes, we're with you.
Hello?
We're with you. We can hear you.
Okay, then number two, you said politicians come up with all kinds of agenda. How many governors or gubernatorial candidates have you known with an agenda? I'm proud to say that I have succeeded in creating a new political consciousness, because when they say Pastor Ize-Iyamu today, everybody will tell you the simple agenda. So I have been able to put in the front burner the need for candidates for office to have an agenda, a manifesto. And I think it's good for our politics. And I want to assure you that the reason why I am bold enough to put it in print is because I want the people of Edo State to judge me, to judge my performance by what is written here. Many people are afraid to put their promises in writing because they have no intention of keeping it. So for me, for posterity, I have put down, this is what I hope to achieve. And so anybody can look at it tomorrow and say, you did this, you didn't do this. So that is the document that, hello?
We're with you.
That is the document that, hello?
We can hear you.
We're with you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, so that is the document that I have put here. And I'm assuring you that I am very, very determined to ensure that everything in this document is implemented. There was a question you asked. I've forgotten it now.
No, about how you will create employment.
We talked about
how you intend to create employment.
Thank you. That is key. Now, listen. Thank you. No, that is very important. Now, everything about the simple agenda is about job creation. Let me give you one example. Number one, security. For me, security is not cheap. You must fund security. And for us to believe that the personnel of the police in Edo can adequately handle the security situation of state is not possible. We have local vigilantes in every community. Today, our farmlands have been invaded. Many of our farmers cannot go to the farm. Why? Because many of these vigilantes that were there before to protect them have stopped functioning. They are all looking for means of livelihood. So it means that we must deliberately engage them. This vigilante must not be engaged by government. They cannot be working free of charge. Government must encourage them and put them on the payroll. We must give them something every month to secure our state. Because if our state is secured, then a lot of good things can happen to our state. Number two, another example. The last time teachers were employed in Edo State was when I was secretary to government. Through the Post-Primary Education Board, we employed close to 4,000 teachers. And even Obaseki's predecessor, Commander Oshiomhole, realized that in most schools in Edo State, you have one principal and one teacher. So there was glaring need to employ teachers. And he set up a Professor Delis Agbonlao committee to recommend the teachers that they should employ. They recommended 2,000. They did adverts, they interviewed people, and it was just to now employ these people. But unfortunately, they were not able to do so. Obaseki has been in government now for close to 4 years, and these people have not been employed. Not because they don't need them. They need them. But you are trying to ensure that you suppress your current expenditure at the detriment of education. Meanwhile, you are increasing your security votes, which is not even being given to security agencies. That, to me, is a clear mispriority. Employment of teachers alone, even if we were to take 2,000, 2,000 would have been fulfilling just 1% of his claim that he will give 200,000 jobs. But in my case, employment of teachers will bring employment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Employment of head personnel.
Thank you, Pastor.
Employment of head personnel. So every scheme here has potential for employing people. Wow. And the infrastructure we want to do, local content must be maintained.
Well, thank you,
We believe
Pastor
in the ability of our people. This present government, most of the jobs that they do, they give it to outsiders. Well, we are going to reverse it.
On that note,
the job that we will do will be done by Edo people.
On that note, unfortunately, we don't have much more time. Otherwise, we will have loved to continue this conversation for another 1 hour. But I'm sure there will be another day and another time. Thank you very much, Pastor Ize-Iyamu, and all the best.